Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are steering into the abyss of the internet. And honestly, the abyss is making a really weird face back at us.
It usually is.
It usually is.
Maybe.
We're talking about trolling.
Oh,
And
I know.
I know the moment I say trolling, you probably have a very specific image in your head. Maybe it's a 14-year-old in a basement spamming memes. Maybe it's that guy in the comments section who just won't let the Star Wars sequel trilogy go. Or maybe it's something darker.
It is likely a mix of all those things.
Good.
But if there is one thing the research stack for this deep dive proves, it is that our collective definition of trolling is way too narrow.
How so?
We tend to think of it as just noise, static on the line, just annoying people being annoying.
Right, like mosquitoes.
Yeah.
You just swat them
Yeah.
away and move on.
Exactly. But what we're going to explore today suggests that trolling is so much more than a nuisance. It is a complex sociological phenomenon. It has a history that predates the World Wide Web, a psychology that links to some genuinely disturbing personality traits, and this is where it gets really scary. It has evolved into a legitimate weapon of geopolitical warfare.
Whoa!
Yeah, we are talking about a spectrum that runs from benign pranks to state-sponsored psychological operations.
So that is the mission for today. We're going to peel back the layers. We're going to move beyond the modern idea of just, internet harassment and uncover the history, which, spoiler alert, involves the Vietnam War
It does.
and the strange twisting evolution of the troll. Because I was shocked to learn that trolling didn't originally mean being a monster.
It really didn't. And I think that is the best place to start. We need to define the beast before we dissect it.
Okay, let's do it.
If you look at the academic literature, or even just the definitions used by sociologists, trolling is defined as the act of deliberately posting offensive or provocative messages.
Deliberately.
Deliberately, intended to elicit an emotional response.
Deliberately seems like the operative word there. It's not an accident. You don't accidentally troll someone.
No, absolutely not. It requires intent. You are engineering a reaction. The goal is the emotional spike from the victim. In the subculture, as you know, they call this the lulz.
The lulz.
Yeah.
It's such a specific term. It's not just laughter or fun. It has a nasty edge to it.
It does. It implies a kind of detached, chaotic amusement at someone else's expense. But even within that definition, there is a massive range.
A spectrum, like you said.
A huge spectrum. On one end, you have what you might call playtime trolling. This is mischievous, maybe a little annoying, but generally harmless. It's a prank.
Okay.
On the far other end, you have domination trolling or strategic trolling.
Domination trolling. That sounds ominous.
It is. That is where the goal isn't just to giggle. It is to destroy a reputation, to silence a voice, or even to destabilize a political movement. It is tactical aggression.
It's about manipulating how people perceive reality. So we have this spectrum, but let's go back to the word itself, because I think 99% of people, including me, until I read these notes, assume that troll refers to the mythical creature.
Of course.
The ugly guy living under the bridge in the Three Billy Goats Gruff story, waiting to eat you. It fits perfectly. Trolls are ugly. They stop you from getting where you want to go. They're antisocial.
It is a perfect coincidence, but it is a coincidence. The term trolling in this context actually comes from fishing.
Fishing. Okay, I have never held a fishing rod in my life. So you are going to have to walk me through the mechanics here. How does annoying people on the internet relate to catching fish?
So there are two words that sound similar but mean very different things. There is trawling, T-R-A-W-L, where you drag a massive net behind a boat and catch everything in your path.
Right. Indiscriminate. You catch the fish, the boots, the tires, everything.
Exactly. But trolling, T-R-O-L-L, is a specific technique where you drag a baited line or a lure slowly through the water from a moving boat. You are pulling it along, making it look enticing, waiting for something to bite. You are targeting a reaction.
Oh, I see. So the internet troll isn't the guy throwing a net over the whole comment section.
Yeah.
He is the guy dangling a very specific, shiny, annoying lure, waiting for one specific person to snap at it.
Precisely. You put the bait out there, a controversial statement, a deliberate factual error, and you wait to see who cannot resist correcting you or getting angry.
And here is the kicker you mentioned earlier. This usage of the word trolling to mean baiting a reaction predates the internet entirely.
By decades.
This was the Vietnam War connection.
Yes. Around 1972, U.S. Navy pilots started using the term trolling for MiGs.
MiGs being the Soviet-made fighter jets used by the North Vietnamese.
Correct. The U.S. pilots would fly consistently in a way that made them look like easy targets, or they would fly specific patterns to act as decoys. They were dragging the lure through the sky.
They were baiting them.
They wanted the MiGs to bite, to come out and engage so they could be shot down. They called it trolling.
That is fascinating. So it literally started as a military tactic. It wasn't about being mean. It was about setting a trap. Come and get me, I dare you.
And that DNA is still in the internet troll today. It is all about the trap.
Okay, so obviously at some point, the Old Norse folklore of the troll monster merged with this.
Oh, absolutely. The internet culture adopted the avatar of the ugly, brutish monster because it suited the behavior. It was a perfect fit. But the action, the verb to troll, is all about the bait.
So how did we get from Navy pilots dogfighting over Vietnam to teenagers arguing on Reddit? There had to be a bridge, pun intended.
The bridge was Usenet. We have to go back to the early 1990s.
Paint the picture for us, because I think it's hard for modern internet users to visualize just how different the online world was in, say, 1992.
It's almost unrecognizable. It was a text-based world. No images, no videos, no influencers, no likes.
Right.
Just screens of green or amber text on black backgrounds. It was very academic, very technical. A lot of university people, researchers.
They're a small community.
Tiny by today's standards. And there was a specific new group called alt.folklore.urban.
Alt.folklore.urban. So this was where people discussed urban legends, like alligators in the sewers and that kind of thing.
Exactly that. They would debunk myths or trace the origins of stories. And in this community, the term trolling for newbies emerged. But, and this is crucial, it wasn't malicious.
It was?
No, not at all. It was a game. It was a kind of hazing ritual.
A hazing ritual, like a fraternity initiation.
In a way, the veteran users wanted to see if a new person was smart enough to be part of the in-group. So they would post a topic that had been debated 1,000 times or a fact that was subtly wrong just to see who would fall for it.
Okay, I need a specific example. What kind of bait works on a bunch of urban legend nerds in 1992?
The classic example, the one everyone brings up, is the glass flows myth.
The glass flows myth.
Have you ever heard the idea that old cathedral windows are thicker at the bottom because glass is actually a very slow-moving liquid that flows over centuries?
Yes, I actually think I learned that in school. Is that not true?
It is completely false. Glass is an amorphous solid. It doesn't flow.
So why are they thicker at the bottom?
It's simply because medieval glass-blowing techniques were imperfect. When they made a pane, one side was often thicker. When they installed it, they just put the heavy side down for stability.
My whole life is a lie. Okay, so how did they weaponize this on Usenet?
A veteran troll would log on and write a very serious, intellectual-sounding post. They wouldn't say glass moves all. They would write 3 paragraphs about viscosity and molecular structures, sounding very authoritative, claiming that glass flows.
And they just wait.
They wait, and inevitably, a new user, a newbie, would jump in. They would either say, wow, that's amazing, I never knew that, or they would try to argue against it using incorrect logic.
Huh.
And the moment they did that, the veterans knew, okay, this person is a newbie. They don't check their sources. They aren't one of us yet.
So the troll wasn't the person screaming insults. The troll was the person pretending to be a polite but misinformed intellectual.
Exactly. It was an inside joke. It served the sociological function. It defined the boundaries of the community. It identified the us and the them.
It feels almost gentle compared to what we see today. It's like a riddle. If you solve it, you get to stay in the club.
It was gentle, but the internet didn't stay small. By the late 90s, specifically around the time of AOL, you had this massive influx of new users. The eternal September, they called it. The community just got too big to manage.
The floodgates opened.
And that is when the definition shifted. There were too many newbies to haze. So the practice of trolling evolved from a community test into a form of solitary entertainment.
I see.
It became about playing a character, often a stupid or inflammatory character, just to watch people get mad, for fun.
And that is the pivot point. That is where we leave the gentle hazing behind and enter the dark territory.
Yeah.
Because it takes a specific type of brain to look at a screen and say, I'm going to spend the next 4 hours making strangers angry for my own amusement.
It does, and this is where we have to look at the psychology, because for a long time, people thought trolls were just bored kids. But researchers have done deep profiling on this, and they found a correlation with what is called the dark tetrad.
The dark tetrad. That sounds like a heavy metal band or a group of supervillains.
It might as well be. It is a cluster of 4 personality traits that are generally considered socially aversive.
And those are?
You have narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and sadism.
Okay, let's break those down. How do they manifest in a troll?
Well, narcissism is pretty straightforward. The need for attention. Look at me. Look at the chaos I caused. Machiavellianism is about manipulation using people as pawns in your game.
Okay.
But the studies show the strongest link between trolling and the other two. Psychopathy and sadism.
Sadism is the big one that jumps out at me. That's taking pleasure in someone else's pain, right?
Yes. In this context, psychologists often call it everyday sadism. We aren't necessarily talking about serial killers who physically torture people. We are talking about verbal or vicarious sadism.
So they enjoy the psychological distress of others.
They get a thrill from it. They want to see you type in all caps. They want to see you lose your cool. Your frustration is their entertainment.
So when I'm sitting there, face red, typing a furious response to some guy who said something awful, he is literally getting a dopamine hit from my anger.
That is the reward. Your suffering is his reward. And the psychopathy part is the lack of empathy. They don't feel bad about causing that suffering.
And Machiavellianism.
That comes in with the control. If I can type a sentence that ruins your morning, I have power over you. I control your emotional state from thousands of miles away.
That is terrifying. It makes them sound like emotional vampires.
It's a power trip. There's a researcher, Ben Radford, who has a really interesting theory about this. He suggests that trolls don't see themselves as bad guys. They see themselves as jesters.
Jesters, like court jesters in the little hats.
Bad clowns, he calls them. If you think about the medieval court jester, they were the only ones allowed to mock the king. They were the tricksters who spoke the truth through humor.
So the troll thinks, I'm not being a bully, I'm just exposing how sensitive you are.
Exactly. I'm exposing your hypocrisy. I'm showing that you take yourself too seriously. They view themselves as performing a kind of public service by pricking your ego.
A very twisted public service.
They hide behind the mask, the anonymous avatar, and perform for the lulz.
It's just a joke, bro.
Yeah.
Defense weaponized into a lifestyle.
And the engine that allows this to happen, the thing that makes it all possible, is the online disinhibition effect.
Which is basically the fact that we act like absolute maniacs when we can't see each other's faces.
Right. Judith Goneth, who is a brilliant researcher on social media, she puts it perfectly. She says that in the physical world, one body equals one identity.
Okay.
If I see you, I know you're a person, I see your eyes, I see your reaction, there are consequences. But online, we are just text. We are information.
I'm not yelling at a human, I'm yelling at a username.
Exactly. The empathy circuit in the brain essentially short circuits. You don't see the pain you are causing, so you don't feel the social shame that usually stops you from being a monster in public.
So is there a gender dynamic here? I feel like the stereotype of the troll is overwhelmingly male. Is that fair, or is that just a bias?
No, the research really backs that up. Studies consistently show that men are more likely to engage in malicious trolling.
Why is that?
Psychologists link this to what they call agentic characteristics, traits like competitiveness, dominance, and assertiveness, which are, often socialized more heavily in men.
Trolling is a dominance game.
It's a status game. It is about winning the conversation, about being on top.
So if we know they want to win, and we know they feed on our anger, we have to talk about the golden rule of the internet. Don't feed the trolls.
The classic advice, the mantra.
Does it work? Or is that just something we tell ourselves to feel better?
In theory, it is the only thing that works. It is standard behavioral conditioning. If you stop providing the reward, which is your attention,
the behavior should stop.
The behavior should extinguish, but, and this is a huge but, there is a trap called the extinction burst.
The extinction burst. Okay, explain this, because it sounds like something exploding.
It basically is. Imagine a toddler who wants a cookie. He whines, you say no. He whines louder, you ignore him. Does he stop immediately?
Absolutely not. He goes nuclear, he screams, he throws himself on the floor, the whole 9 yards.
That is the extinction burst. When the expected reward is removed, the behavior doesn't just stop, it spikes. It gets incredibly intense. The subject tries harder and harder to get that reaction back.
So if I ignore a troll who has been harassing me, he might get worse before he goes away.
Yes. Much worse, potentially. He might escalate from annoying comments to direct threats or to creating new accounts to get at you. He is desperate for the lulz.
And this is where most people fail.
This is exactly where they fail. They ignore the troll for a day, the troll escalates, that's the burst, and then the victim breaks down and responds saying, "Leave me alone."
And then the troll learns, I just have to scream louder to get what I want.
Exactly. You have just reinforced the escalation. You've taught him that extreme behavior works. If you are going to use "don't feed the trolls," you have to be prepared to weather the burst. You have to ride out the storm, and most people can't.
That is actually really practical advice. It's grim, but practical. Now, I want to pivot a bit, because while the psychology seems universal, the flavor of trolling changes depending on where you are in the world. I was looking at the linguistic notes here, and some of these terms are incredible.
Oh, the international terminology is a goldmine. It tells you so much about how different cultures perceive the annoyance.
Let's start with the Chinese term, bai mu.
Bai mu. It literally translates to white eye.
That sounds like a ghost story. The legend of white eye.
It refers to the idea of eyes without pupils. So someone who is wide-eyed is blindly talking nonsense. They can't read the room, they're socially blind.
I love that. It's not about them being mean, necessarily. It's about them being oblivious. Look at this guy. He has no pupils. It's so descriptive.
And then in Korea, they use the word naksi, which brings us full circle.
Don't tell me. Does it mean fishing?
It means fishing. The metaphor holds up completely across the Pacific. In fact, if you get fooled by a troll in a Korean gaming cafe, you might say, "I am a codfish."
I am a codfish. There is something so humble and honest about that. You're just admitting you took the bait.
It's great.
But my absolute favorite is the Brazilian one. This is poetry. Chess with a pigeon.
This is an adage that has become the definitive definition of arguing with a troll in Brazil. The saying goes, "Arguing with a fool is like playing chess with a pigeon."
Walk me through the imagery here. I want the full picture.
No matter how good you are at chess, the pigeon is just going to knock over the pieces, defecate on the board, and fly back to its flock claiming victory.
It is perfect. It's so perfect. You could have the best logic, the best citations, the moral high ground, and the pigeon just knocks the king over and craps on the table.
And struts around like it won.
Yeah.
It captures the futility perfectly. You are playing by rules. They are playing by biology.
And then Thailand has one about haircuts. This one was interesting.
Krian. It refers to the closely cropped crew cut that schoolboys in Thailand are required to wear. So when someone is acting like a troll in a forum or a game, they call them Krian. They are calling them a schoolboy.
It's a status check. You are acting like a child. It diminishes their power.
Exactly. It associates the behavior with immaturity, specifically the rowdy kids you might see in internet cafes. It diminishes the troll.
I think we need more of that energy. Less fear, more stop acting like a schoolboy. But unfortunately, we can't stay in the fun linguistics section forever, because we have to acknowledge that trolling isn't always playing chess with a pigeon. Sometimes the pigeon brings a knife.
This is the shift to the dark side. When trolling moves from pranks to harassment and then to things like RIP trolling.
RIP trolling.
Yeah.
Even the name makes me cringe. This is defacing memorial pages, right? For people who have died.
It is, and this brings us right back to that sadism trait we talked about. RIP trolling targets the grieving. The logic, if you can call it that, is that the troll wants the maximum possible emotional reaction.
And where is a human being most vulnerable?
When they have just lost a loved one. When they're at their absolute lowest, that's the target.
It's monstrous. I remember the Trinity Bates case in Australia. She was a child.
A young girl, 8 years old, brutally murdered. And trolls descended on her tribute page on Facebook. They posted horrific images. They mocked her death. They tormented the family.
The public outcry was huge.
It caused such a national outrage that the Australian government had to fast-track new laws. They realized the existing legal framework just didn't cover this level of cruelty.
And in the U.S., the Nikki Katsouris case. I almost don't want to talk about it. It's so vile. But we have to understand the depth of this.
We do, because it shows the escalation. Nikki was 18. She died in a horrific car accident. The crash scene photos were extremely graphic.
And they were leaked.
They were leaked by 2 California Highway Patrol officers. And trolls didn't just post them on 4chan or some gore site. They went further.
What did they do?
They tracked down Nikki's father's email address. They created fake MySpace profiles using her name. And they emailed him the photos of his daughter's decapitated body with captions like, "Hey, Daddy, I'm still alive."
That isn't trolling. That is psychological torture. There's no other word for it.
It is. And that is why it is dangerous to lump everything under one word. Fishing for newbies with a glass fact is one thing. Sending gore to a grieving father is something else entirely. It is weaponized cruelty.
And we can't talk about this without talking about the hubs where this kind of thing festers. 4chan, specifically the B-board.
4chan is the engine room for a lot of this. It's an image board with forced anonymity. No usernames, no post history. It creates a hive mind. You aren't an individual, you are just anonymous.
And that hive mind can be powerful, for good or ill. I mean, they did Project Chinology, where they went to war against Scientology.
Yeah.
They wore the Guy Fawkes masks. They saw themselves as activist trolls.
They did. They used classic trolling tactics, prank calls, black faxes, which is sending solid black pages to drain a target's ink, overwhelming their servers. But they directed it at an organization they believed was evil.
So it shows that trolling is a methodology.
Exactly. It's like a hammer. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use it to crack a skull. The tool is neutral. The intent is everything.
Well, speaking of hammers, let's talk about the biggest hammer of all. State-sponsored trolling. Because this is where the lulz stops being the motive and geopolitics takes over.
This is the era of industrialized trolling. We are not talking about a guy in a basement anymore. We are talking about salaried employees in office buildings, clocking in at 9 a.m., sitting in a cubicle, and trolling for the government.
Let's start with China, the 50-cent party. I always assumed this meant they literally paid people 50 cents to go online and argue with dissidents. You know, hey, you're wrong about the government.
That is the common misconception. We assume state censorship looks like an argument. But Gary King, a researcher at Harvard, did a massive analysis of millions of these posts. And what he found was that the 50-cent party, and it's a huge operation, something like 440 million posts a year, they generally do not argue.
They don't argue. So what do?
They distract. They cheerlead. Let's say there is a protest breaking out in a rural province and people are posting about it online.
Okay.
The 50-cent army doesn't go into the comments and say the protesters are wrong. Instead, they flood the internet with beautiful photos of the Chinese landscape. They post inspirational quotes about traditional culture. They talk about how great the local food is.
Wait, that's genius. They just changed the subject on a national scale.
It is strategic distraction. If the internet is a room where everyone is shouting about a fire, the 50-cent party doesn't shout there is no fire. They just bring in 1,000 people to start singing happy birthday, really, really loudly.
They drown out the signal with positive noise.
It's so much more effective than arguing. Arguing keeps the controversial topic alive. Distraction buries it under a mountain of fluff.
That's insidious.
Yeah.
Now compare that to the Russian strategy. The Internet Research Agency or the Russian troll farms, their goal is different.
Very different. They don't want to distract. They want to create conflict and confusion. They want to polarize.
This is hybrid warfare.
Yes. And one of their most effective and I think most frightening tools is what the NATO sources call the Wikipedia troll.
The Wikipedia troll. This is the one that really scared me when I read about it. Explain how this works.
Okay, let's role play this. Let's say you are on a forum and you post a comment criticizing Russia's annexation of Crimea. You say, this is a violation of international borders.
Okay, simple enough. Russia is wrong for invading Crimea. That's my post.
Now, a standard troll might just call you an idiot, but a Wikipedia troll will reply with something very calm and seemingly reasonable. They'll say, it is interesting you talk about borders. Did you know about the U.S. annexation of Hawaii in 1898? Here is the link to the Wikipedia article detailing how the U.S. government overthrew the Hawaiian kingdom.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's true. The U.S. did do that. The link is probably to a real Wikipedia page.
Exactly. The facts are true. The link is to an authoritative source. But look what just happened. Are we talking about Crimea anymore?
No. Now we're talking about American imperialism in the 19th century.
You have been neutralized. They used true facts in the wrong context to imply a moral equivalence. It is whataboutism weaponized with citations.
And if I try to argue back, I look like a hypocrite. Oh, so it's okay when America does it.
And the conversation is derailed. It's an incredibly sophisticated tactic because it targets people who think they're smart, the people who check sources. It hacks your critical thinking. It creates a fog where truth doesn't matter because everyone is guilty of something.
And corporations do this too, right? This isn't just states. We hear the term astroturfing.
Astroturfing is fake grassroots support. But the specific character to look out for here is the concern troll.
I hate the concern troll. maybe more than any other kind.
We all do because they're so slippery. The concerned troll pretends to be an ally. They enter a community, say an online group for a political campaign, and say, hey guys, I love this candidate, I'm a huge supporter, but UT.
But I'm really worried that if we talk about this specific policy, we are going to alienate the moderate voters, or I just don't think we have the resources to win.
Exactly. I support the protest, but I'm just concerned that this slogan is too aggressive and might turn people off. We have a documented case of this. A staffer for U.S. Congressman Charles Bass was caught posing as a concerned supporter of his opponent, Paul Hodes.
What did he do?
He went on to liberal blogs and posted comments like, I really want Hodes to win, but I'm just worried he's wasting his money because Bass is unbeatable and we should focus on other races.
It's sabotage disguised as friendship. It sows doubt from the inside. It's designed to lower morale.
And it creates what's called uncertainty bias. If you can just make people a little bit unsure, they freeze, they don't donate, they don't volunteer, they don't march. You don't have to convince them to switch sides. You just have to convince them to do nothing.
God, it makes you paranoid. It makes you look at every comment online and think, are you a real person? Are you a Russian bot? Are you a congressional staffer?
And that paranoia is the damage. That's the goal. Trolling on this scale destroys the social trust required for a public square to function.
Okay, that is heavy.
Yeah.
And I think we need a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Because not all trolling is state-sponsored psychological warfare. Sometimes it's just really funny weirdos being weird. We have to talk about the legends.
We have to talk about Ken M.
Ken M., the myth, the man. For listeners who don't know, who is Ken M.?
Ken McCarthy, known online as Ken M., is widely considered the good troll. His whole persona is the well-meaning moron.
That's a good way to put it.
He goes into comment sections, usually on serious news articles or brand pages, and posts completely absurd, innocent-sounding nonsense.
But the trick is, he baits people into correcting him. He preys on their need to be right.
Yes, he trolls their intellectual vanity. Do you have the space potato comment there?
I do. This is one of my all-time favorites. So there's a serious article about a new telescope discovery, science stuff, and Ken M. comments, Pastor says space is the only place big enough to hold all the mountains if they weren't so heavy.
It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's beautiful.
None. And yet, look at the replies. Ken, you are an idiot. That's not how physics works. People are furious. They are typing out long paragraphs explaining mass and volume and gravity to him.
And that is the beauty of it. The trolls in that scenario are the people replying to him. He is exposing their desperate need to be the smartest person in the room. He isn't abusive. He's absurdist. He turns the comment section into a surrealist comedy sketch.
It's a work of art. Then there are the hoaxes, the Jenkum panic. This one actually hit the mainstream news.
This is a masterclass in media literacy, or the lack thereof. A user named Pickwick on a forum called Totsi claimed he was making a new drug called Jenkum.
And the recipe was unique, to say the least.
It was fermented human waste, sewage. The idea was you'd inhale the fumes to get high.
Gross. Just gross.
He posted photos of bottles filled with brown sludge. He claimed it was the real deal. In reality, it was just flour, water, and some chocolate syrup. But he sold the story and the media bit hard.
I remember this. Fox News ran a segment on it, didn't they?
They did. Major news outlets warned parents to check their children's breath for the smell of sewage. They ran serious, straight-faced segments about the new drug sweeping the nation.
That has to be the ultimate troll victory. Getting a neatly groomed news anchor to look into the camera and say the word Jenkum with a straight face.
It was a perfect troll because it exposed the sensationalism of the 24-hour news cycle. They didn't fact-check. They just wanted the shock value. And the internet absolutely howled with laughter.
I also want to mention the vampetaço in Brazil. Because this feels like a bridge between the funny stuff and the political stuff. It's almost a protest.
It is. This is counter-trolling as a form of protest. So Vampeta is a famous ex-footballer in Brazil.
Okay.
And years ago, he once posed fully nude for a magazine called G Magazine.
Okay. I think I see where this is going.
When a public figure, someone like Elon Musk or a foreign politician, says something that offends Brazil, Brazilian users engage in a vampetaço. They flood the person's social media replies with thousands and thousands of photos of the naked footballer.
Yeah, if you insult Brazil, your entire timeline just becomes naked soccer players.
Wall to wall, it makes the comment section unusable. It embarrasses the target. It's a digital flash mob using nudity as a censorship weapon. It's chaotic, it's absurd, but it's effective.
You have to admire the creativity. We won't argue with you, we will just show you Vampeta. But this raises the big question. If trolls can harass families, disrupt elections, and flood timelines with nudity. What is the law doing about it?
The law is trying to catch up, but it's struggling, and it varies wildly depending on where you are.
Let's start with the U.S. What's the situation here?
In the United States, trolling is largely protected by the First Amendment. Being mean or offensive isn't a federal crime. Unless it crosses the line into a true threat or stalking, you are generally allowed to be a jerk.
Even the hateful stuff.
Hate speech is protected speech in the U.S., generally speaking. There was a fascinating collision of this with the U.S. Army esports team a couple of years ago.
Wait, the Army has an esports team?
They do. They stream on Twitch to recruit young people. Well, trolls started going into their Twitch chat and asking questions about U.S. war crimes.
Oh.
What about the My Lai massacre? What about white phosphorus? Things like that. Trolling the Army with its own history.
And then the Army started banning them, I assume.
They did. But the ACLU and other legal groups stepped in and said, wait a minute. You are a government entity. This is a public forum. You cannot ban citizens for their speech just because you don't like the content.
That is a wild paradox.
Yeah.
The trolls were using the First Amendment to troll the military about war crimes, and the First Amendment protected them.
Exactly. But if you cross the Atlantic to the UK, it is a completely different ballgame.
The UK doesn't mess around, right?
No. They have the Malicious Communications Act and the Communications Act. People have been literally jailed, sent to prison for tweets.
Prison for tweets. Give me an example.
There was a man who made grossly offensive jokes about a missing child, April Jones, who was murdered, and another missing girl, Madeleine McCann. He was sentenced to 12 weeks in jail.
12 weeks? For a joke.
A grossly offensive one. The legal standard there is much, much broader than in the U.S. It is subjective, but it is enforced. And Japan is moving in that direction, too. In 2022, they introduced a ban on online insults.
How do they define an insult? That seems tricky.
It is. It's defined as publicly demeaning someone's social standing without referring to specific facts. So if I call you a thief and you are a thief, that's one thing. But if I just call you garbage or useless, that is a prosecutable insult, and now it is punishable by imprisonment.
It feels like the world is splitting. The U.S. is saying free speech above all else, and much of the rest of the world is saying no, human dignity is the priority.
And in the middle of that split, we have the platforms themselves trying to solve it with real names. You see this push for de-anonymization. Facebook, LinkedIn, Reuters comments, they want you to use your legal name.
The idea being, if you can't wear the mask, you won't throw the brick.
Correct. Remove the anonymity, you remove the disinhibition effect. But then you lose the privacy that allows whistleblowers to speak or marginalized people to find community safely. It is a double-edged sword with no easy answer.
We have been on quite a journey today. I mean, we went from Navy pilots dragging lures for MiGs to Glassflow's debates on Usenet, through the dark psychology of sadism, all the way to Chinese propaganda armies and Brazilian nude photo protests.
It is a sweeping landscape, but if I can summarize it, I'd say this. Trolling isn't just one thing. It is a mechanism. It is a tool of identity deception.
It goes back to what you said earlier about the internet. We aren't bodies online. We are just information. Trolling is hacking that information.
And it is hacking the social contract. Society, conversation, it relies on the assumption that people are arguing in good faith. That when you speak, you generally mean what you say. Trolling weaponizes that trust. When a troll enters the room, good faith dies.
Which leaves me with a final, slightly unsettling thought to chew on. We talked about concerned trolls, people who pretend to be on your side just to sabotage you. We talked about Russian trolls using true facts to manipulate you.
Where are you going with this?
Well, if aggression is easy to spot and hate is easy to block, what happens when the trolls start using agreement as their primary weapon? If the most effective troll is the one who pretends to be your best friend, simply to steer you off a cliff, how can we ever trust anyone who agrees with us online?
That is the real danger, isn't it? We might be entering an era where sincerity itself is more suspicious than aggression. If someone is yelling at me, at least I know where they stand. If someone is agreeing with me, are they phishing?
On that paranoid note, check your sources, watch out for pigeons playing chess, and thanks for diving deep with us.
Stay skeptical out there.
See you next time.